All right, so Bitcoin to $10 million a coin.
Wow.
You've probably seen those headlines floating around, right?
Yeah, I've seen a few.
And maybe thought, okay, is this guy serious?
It's definitely eye-catching.
Well, it is Michael Saylor we're talking about.
Right, the MicroStrategy co-founder.
He basically went all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah, they've got a ton of it on their balance sheet.
So when he makes these bold predictions, it's not just talk.
Definitely not op. He is putting his money where his mouth is.
Big time. And to really understand his thinking, we're going to dive deep into this 84-minute interview he did with Robin Sear.
Perfect. I've got the transcript right here, ready to go.
We'll break down his main arguments, the logic behind that $10 million target.
And all in a way that's clear and easy to grasp.
Exactly. This isn't about just throwing out a big number.
Right. It's about understanding why he believes it.
And he had a lot more to say that might surprise you.
I'm sure he did.
So let's start with that $10 million prediction. What's the core of his argument?
Well, he starts with this idea of Bitcoin as perfect money.
Perfect money.
As opposed to the traditional government-issued currencies.
Dollars, euros, yen, you name it.
Exactly. He sees those as inherently flawed, facing a short, brutal life when it comes to maintaining value.
Okay, so perfect money versus our everyday cash. What makes Bitcoin so perfect in his eyes?
The key, he says, is in its fundamental properties, specifically its scarcity.
Scarcity!
There's a hard limit of 21 million Bitcoins that will ever exist.
So unlike dollars or euros that can just be printed.
Exactly. No central bank can just create more Bitcoin out of thin air.
And this scarcity, combined with growing demand as more people see its value.
That's the primary driver behind his long-term price forecast.
I see. He even uses this term economic immortality.
Right. Bitcoin's ability to preserve value over very long periods.
It's like a digital gold almost.
It's got that kind of store of value quality built in.
So for those new to this, it boils down to limited supply in a world where everything else can be endlessly printed.
Exactly. And Saylor's argument is that as more people grasp this concept,
they'll move their capital into Bitcoin as a safer store of wealth.
More demand hitting that fixed supply that's the engine pushing toward $10 million.
Of course, assuming those global adoption trends continue.
Right. Certain economic conditions would have to play out too.
Now, one thing that jumped out at me was his prediction about China.
Oh, yeah. China embracing Bitcoin.
Given their past crackdowns on crypto, it felt kind of unexpected.
Yeah, it definitely raised some eyebrows.
What's his reasoning there?
Saylor believes that the fundamental advantages of Bitcoin,
especially as a secure store of value and a hedge against economic instability.
Right. Those will eventually become undeniable for both the Chinese government and its people.
So he sees it as practical economic sense winning out over regulatory concerns.
That's a key part of his argument. He thinks individuals and even the state
will start looking for ways to safeguard their capital over the long term.
And Bitcoin, with its inherent characteristics, will become more and more attractive.
He's not saying China will do a complete 180 overnight, though, right?
No more like a gradual recognition of its value.
But even a gradual shift from China with its massive economy.
That would be huge for Bitcoin's global reach and price.
Definitely something to watch. Okay, let's talk about this idea of Bitcoin as a corporate immortality machine.
It sounds pretty dramatic.
Almost science fiction-y. What's he getting at?
It circles back to those core principles of preserving wealth long term.
Right.
Saylor argues that companies holding Bitcoin on their balance sheets,
kind of like MicroStrategy has done.
Exactly. They gain a significant advantage in terms of survival.
Because Bitcoin can potentially appreciate in value, while traditional assets might lose value due to inflation.
Exactly. Plus, it's decentralized. No single entity controls it.
So it's resistant to things like censorship and single points of failure.
Right. It becomes this shield against risks, preserving wealth across generations.
And MicroStrategy's huge Bitcoin holdings.
They've certainly made a splash.
And according to Saylor, it's really boosted their financial standing.
Absolutely. It's not just about quick profits for them.
It's about this fundamental shift in how companies manage their treasury.
Positioning themselves for long-term resilience and growth.
Okay, so we've covered the price prediction China and this corporate strategy.
Right.
Now let's get a little more technical.
Sounds good.
The 3 layers of Bitcoin.
Yeah, this is crucial for understanding his overall vision.
Can you break that down for us simply?
Absolutely. Saylor describes Bitcoin as having a 3-layer architecture.
Okay.
And each layer serves a specific purpose in the ecosystem.
Layer 1, he calls the foundation, right?
That's the main Bitcoin blockchain itself.
The bedrock.
It's incredibly secure and immutable, meaning transactions are basically permanent.
Okay.
It's designed for long-term holding and moving large amounts of value securely.
But those transactions on this layer, are they typically slow?
They can be slower and more expensive.
Because the priority is security and decentralization.
Exactly.
Got it. Then there's layer 2, high-frequency transactions.
That's where the Lightning Network comes in.
Right.
Layer 2 solutions like Lightning are built on top of that base layer.
To make things faster and cheaper.
Exactly. It's like opening a tab at a bar.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You have multiple small transactions within that tab.
And only the opening and closing of the tab gets recorded on the main blockchain.
Right, making things much faster and cheaper for smaller interactions.
So layer 1 for secure big holdings, layer 2 for everyday smaller purchases.
You got it.
Then there's layer 3, custodial services and ETFs.
This is where things get interesting.
What are those exactly?
Layer 3 includes services that let people interact with Bitcoin
Okay.
without directly managing their own private keys.
Private keys, those are like the passwords to your Bitcoin wallet, right?
Precisely. So layer 3 includes things like cryptocurrency exchanges,
Where you can buy and sell Bitcoin.
and importantly, Bitcoin ETFs, exchange-traded funds.
Ah, ETFs, I've heard of those.
He describes them as funds of wrapped Bitcoin,
Okay.
a convenient way for traditional investors to get exposure to Bitcoin.
Without having to deal with all the technical stuff.
Exactly.
But he did mention a trade-off with layer 3, right?
Yes, with custodial services and ETFs, you're trusting a third party to hold your Bitcoin.
So you don't have direct control.
That's the potential downside. But Saylor also argues that these ETFs,
They can actually contribute to Bitcoin's decentralization.
it sounds counterintuitive, but hear him out,
Okay, I'm listening.
by making Bitcoin accessible through familiar financial products like ETFs.
More people can invest.
Exactly. It spreads ownership more widely instead of just a few large holders controlling most of it,
So it strengthens the network's resilience.
and aligns with that core principle of decentralization: no single point of control.
Interesting perspective. So this 3-layer structure
It shows how Bitcoin can be both a secure store of value.
and a more practical medium for everyday transactions.
Exactly. Each layer meeting different needs and driving wider adoption.
Now, besides these core ideas,
Yes.
Saylor also touched on integrating Bitcoin into corporate finance.
Oh, yeah, he's a big proponent of that. Yeah.
What were his thoughts?
He sees a future where companies incorporate Bitcoin into their financial statements,
Not just as an alternative,
but as a source of competitive advantage.
because holding an appreciating asset like Bitcoin,
Can really strengthen a company's financial health.
and he even hinted at Bitcoin reshaping the entire global financial landscape.
Potentially even becoming part of the international monetary system.
A bold vision for sure. Now, the interview also had some audience interaction and resources mentioned.
Right.
Anything worth noting there?
Well, Rob and Sear did encourage viewers to join a live chat during the interview.
Okay.
And there were mentions of promotional offers for some Bitcoin products.
Like from companies like Bitbox and 21 Bitcoin.
Yes, using a specific code.
And the interview seemed to be well received in the crypto community.
Yeah. Figures like Fred Krueger gave positive feedback online.
So a good amount of buzz. Okay, let's recap the key takeaways from this 84-minute deep dive.
All right, so the core insights are Saylor's strong belief that Bitcoin will hit $10 million a coin.
Driven by its scarcity and role as perfect money.
Then there's his prediction of China eventually adopting Bitcoin.
As a key store of wealth.
We also explored his concept of Bitcoin as a corporate immortality machine.
Providing long-term financial stability for companies.
And lastly, understanding that 3-layer architecture.
The secure base layer, the faster layer 2 for transactions.
And the accessible layer 3 with ETFs.
It gives you a complete picture of how Bitcoin could function on a larger scale.
And all of this coming straight from the source. No need to watch the whole interview yourself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought for you.
I like these.
Given Saylor's vision for Bitcoin,
Yeah.
what do you think are the biggest implications?
Both the opportunities and the challenges.
If even a fraction of his predictions come true for our global financial system.
It's definitely something to ponder.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Michael Saylor's fascinating take on Bitcoin.
It was my pleasure.
Catch you next time.
See you then.